Start the, is everything going, recording going? All right. The June 3rd meeting of the Nome Planning Commission called to order at 7:04 p.m. Clerk can call a roll.
Roll call. Ford. Hughes.
Present.
Oden. Piscoya.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Lust.
Present.
Looks like we have a quorum. The agenda is before you there.
Motion to approve the agenda?
Motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Lust to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor? Call a roll on the approval of agenda.
Roll call. Hughes.
Yes.
Piscoya.
Yes.
Lust.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
The minutes from the May 13th Planning Commission meeting are in the packet. There a motion to approve.
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Piscoya, seconded by Commissioner Smith. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, call the roll on approval of minutes.
All right. Roll call. Smith.
Yes.
Lust.
Yes.
Piscoya.
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes. Looks like the motion for approval of minutes has passed. The next item on the agenda is Historic Preservation Commission activities. Appears to be blank.
Aaron's on the phone.
All right. Communications, equally blank. Next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. Are there any citizens that would wish to comment tonight? Come to the podium and speak your name for the record and proceed.
Yeah, this is Walter Rose with the Bering Straits Regional Housing Authority. Been asked to fill in for our construction manager, Eric Noet. And perhaps you guys could bring me up to date. Has there been any discussion of rezoning the Ruby claim to residential?
Generally speaking, citizens' comments isn't really a question and answer session. That kind of a question would be best taken up with the administration. But generally speaking, there is a rezoning application process that unless you have undertaken it and begun it, I don't know what to tell you. Generally speaking, we do have planned to look generally at zoning across the city, but in which it may be an opportunity to include that area as well. But outside of that, there is a rezoning request process that can be followed. And if you are in any sort of a time situation, I would suggest that that might be an avenue to explore.
So this isn't question and answer. Are you aware of the development that we're planning out there?
It hasn't been presented to the Planning Commission, no.
Or the city.
And I don't know what the city has seen either. If you haven't applied for any city permits, how would they know about it?
Yeah, we are in the process of applying for a city permit, and we have our wetlands permit in the works. And I do have a presentation that I could provide right now, if this is the appropriate forum to explain what we're doing out there.
Usually a special meeting, a work session.
How long are you talking? Generally, citizens' comments, 3 to 5 minutes?
5 minutes, 10 minutes. Just to bring you in the loop. If I may provide you with some printed information. Okay. So I won't read this verbatim, but last year we received AHF's seed funding coming from 2 funding streams. One to build a 3-unit, a triplex for low-income people, and another to build 2 triplexes for rural professional housing that will first be available to state of Alaska employees. And then if no state of Alaska employees need housing, it will be available to the city of Nome. And the low-income triplex is funded by ERA2 funds. And those funds, any of those funds that are not expended by the end of September this year are forfeited to the U.S. Treasury. So we have a tight deadline. Also last year, we signed a contract with Nana Construction, and they committed to completing the low-income triplex before the deadline, contingent on us having a gravel pad constructed and ready by August 1st of this year. We are currently engaged with U.S. Army Corps and the wetlands permit, and it looks like we're going to be able to get that with plenty of time. So it was brought to my attention that the Ruby Placer subdivision is zoned for mineral extraction, and either we rezone it, we go through the process, which it appears to be to take about 60 days minimum because they're 2 30-day notification periods. So that won't work for us. Where do I say it? I want to get my words right. Well, there's what is it? A conditional permit, conditional use permit, and I don't know how long that takes. And I don't know if this zoning issue will prevent us from being able to get a gravel pad permit from the city of Nome or not. But if there's any chance that it might, then I want to, we should have gotten started on this long ago. And I'm sorry to come to you with such urgency, but we're kind of in a pickle here. It seems to me like the city won't be able to approve our permit until this is resolved. And we've got about a month and a half to do it. So if the commission has any suggestions or could take any actions to help expedite the process, we'd appreciate it. I go over in a little bit more detail here in the handout I gave you. Tried to keep it short. But on the second page, you can see that the subdivision is going to be north of ICBU on the east side of the road. It's going to consist of 3 triplexes and 6 single bedroom units. And this is all AHFC funding. We are doing those 3 single bedroom units are from Bering Straits Housing Inventory. We received additional funding after the first 3 triplexes, and we weren't able to add more to the Nana construction contract, but we had those 6 single unit SIP panel home packages in stock in Nome, and our board of directors approved us using those for this project. Otherwise, it wouldn't be financially feasible. This is a very, funding for this project is very tight, and actually other entities in Nome looked at it and turned it down because they didn't think there was enough money in it. So if it doesn't go down as planned, there could be pretty severe financial consequences for Bering Straits housing. And also, the city and the state will benefit from having this rural professional housing available next year when presumably the Nome Port expansion project is going to move forward. So any questions?
No, I think everyone's appreciative of the efforts to try and develop more housing. We'd like to help you out the best way we can. Strikes me that the conditional use permit application is probably your quickest route. You can pay a fee for expedited processing, and we will hold a special meeting to rule on the conditional use. In the resource development area, multiple family dwellings is a conditional use and so the sooner you get the conditional use permit filed, the sooner that process moves forward.
Okay, I will get after it tomorrow. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Pardon me, Cliff McHenry, Nome Building Inspector. I'm late with this information I'd like to share with you. So let me pass that out and then I'll give my little presentation, please. On the top is a kind of a report, but if you go through this, you'll see a letter that I had put together for Mr. Burnham, and then a copy of on the back page of when the permit was actually issued.
Do you need to keep a copy for yourself, or do you have one?
I got one.
Okay.
Well, so as you know, Mr. Burnham is kind of on the hot seat for his project out there on across from the Martinson subdivision. And I also happen to own property out there. And look at my glasses.
Is there a PA system or anything that can be turned on? I'm not being able to hear hardly anything. I'm hard of hearing.
Well, you can sit up here, Joe.
Good
Y'all
question.
have mics or anything?
We have mics, but not amplifiers. You probably didn't hear me.
No, there's.
Can I move closer?
Oh, yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
It is set at the table.
So if I could continue, please. So Joe basically started a project out there without any kind of permit whatsoever. And we had no action from him until I delivered a letter dated September 9th, stop work order. And he did not comply with that until the date I have on our software that we issue permits, excavation fill permit. The actual date was 10/28. That was when he actually filed the permit. And in the interim, the permit was issued after he had done the work, so he didn't comply with the Corps of Engineer requirements, etc. And part of my job is dealing with people, and I call them the midnight movers and the weekend warriors. And Joe was real good at working out there at night. We got a client over here that lives in the area. He can attest to that. And I tried to get the troopers to issue some kind of notice for moving stuff. with Calvin Schaefer, no permits whatsoever for moving oversized vehicles was ever obtained. And lack of a better word, I don't see what he's appealing. I think he was treated very fairly. If something like this could have happened in Anchorage, I bet he could have been fined on a daily basis, which the city of Nome could do. At the time, I didn't realize I had that power for citations, and in the interim, I've had a triple bypass, and my doctor advises me against issuing citations and being in a stressful situation. So I guess that's it in a nutshell. But, and again, my wife and I own property opposite there, and it's just a big eyesore. Nothing with his business has anything to do with what he's doing out there. The Canastack LLC, it's shellfish, or I don't know what that is, Joe, but you need some kind of conditional use to tie that use out there to some kind of business. But you're not doing a business, it's basically a junkyard. And,
Well, that's your opinion. You're
A
welcome.
point of order, Mr. Chairman.
well, as
Okay.
per the Nome ordinance, it is junkyard.
Cliff,
Yes,
please address your comments to the council.
yeah.
It's not a
All right.
conversation,
Commission.
I was replying to him.
okay?
So anyhow, you have my information, and that's it in a nutshell. Any questions?
Thanks, Cliff.
Pardon?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other citizen comments? We will be having the hearing on your appeal that's coming up. Would that be more appropriate? We'll allow all the citizens' comments to conclude first, and then
Okay.
it's next up on the agenda.
Good.
Okay, are there any further citizens' comments? This is not a council meeting. There's only one opportunity for citizens' comments outside of the appeal hearing.
My name is Thomas Simonson, resident of Nome and Martinsonville. And I've been frustrated to see the piling up of junk across our neighborhood in what seems to be what Cliff said against city codes and ordinances. And I know people have been fined for less in this town, and so I appreciate that this committee is bringing up the issue and sorting out what's what. But as it stands, it doesn't look like the stuff has anything to do on that piece of land. So thank you for considering it.
Thank you.
Excuse me, this is Sam Severn, one of the city attorneys. I'm attending tonight. I would just note that members of the public are allowed to testify under the code at the appeal hearing. So to the extent that there's more comments relevant to the Burnham matter, it might just make a cleaner record if we take them up once during the hearing portion of the meeting.
All right, thank you. Are there any further citizens' comments not related to that particular matter? All right. Seeing none, we will what happened to my agenda? It's here somewhere.
New business.
Yeah, proceed with new business. First item under new business is a public hearing for the appeal of Joe Burnham of the city determination of zoning for parcel 190.1.040. Joe, would you like to go ahead and
Sure.
make a presentation?
Although it's not exactly what this hearing is about, but can I address his comments? a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. I was issued a stop work order after the fact, and on that stop work order, item number 6 of that, the known stop work order, it says an excavation or fill permit is required for any excavation or fill of land that materially alters runoff from the property to be excavated or filled. Now, the material that I used, the material that Alan Beasley used ahead of me back in 86, 87 area when he put fill in there, was washed mine tailings. And thinking that this might come up again, I had a soil analysis done by Northern Analytical and also an engineer's statement that the material that was used has no fines in it and it won't perk. If a person was going to use it for a leach field, you'd have to add fines to it and also some compaction. So the material used does not allow for any groundwater runoff. If you dump a 55-gallon drum out on it, it goes right through it to the tundra just like it was raining anywhere else. You're familiar with washed mine tailings, and that's what's on that pad out there. So according to this stop work order, item number 8, I didn't need a fill permit.
No, item 6.
I'm sorry?
Item 6.
Item 6, I'm sorry. I lost myself here, but at any rate, that's the response to that. I tried to explain that to him when he was out there, but he threw this down in the floor of the machine I was on and stumped off screaming and never was able to get that across to him. And as far as the core permit goes, I'm sure most of you guys are not aware, or maybe are aware, of the Sackett ruling that went on the 23rd of May, if I remember correctly, 23, sometime in May of 23, that, and I've got the Supreme Court ruling right here if anybody wants to read it. And I was also in contact with the Corps engineers at the time, and they were trying to make up their mind internally how they were going to interpret that Supreme Court ruling in relationship to what had been wetland, categorized as wetlands historically. And the Corps Engineer staff person told me that if I wanted to, I could move ahead. It was at my risk if I placed fill into the wetland, because it didn't look to him like it was going to be a regulated wetland, but they had not made a determination at that time how Alaska Corps of Engineers was going to interpret that Supreme Court ruling. So I went ahead and placed the fill without obtaining the Corps permit. And I, to this day, still don't think I need a Corps permit for that, but that's not what this meeting's about here anyway. But I wanted to answer that the best I could. Now, what we're here today about, and that Supreme Court ruling I referred to as Sackett versus the EPA. And it was a pretty extensive ruling. They went back all the way to when the Corps jurisdiction was first done for right-of-ways for transportation and supplies and stuff. But anyway, that's response to Cliff's comments we had to make here. Now on this storage pad, Al Beasy permitted this thing through the city and the Corps of Engineers. I believe it was in, let's see, I got my notes here. He applied for original city permit in June 9th of 2006. City engineer told him it wasn't covered by the Nome general permit at the time. And he also indicated that he would approve it once Al had obtained a Corps of Engineers permit, which he ultimately did. Permit number POA-206-1123-0 was issued July the 27th of 2006. And there was also a non-objection letter by the city of Nome in the comment period when that public notice went out for that field. Permit was approved June 9th 2006. It was approved, the city permit was issued August 9th of 2007. And the purpose on all related documents for that pad at the time was for storage. The court permit stated it was for storage. The city permit stated it was for, the application stated it was for storage, for equipment, connexes. He was, they were a contractor, I think it was Legoe Construction, I think operating in the surrounding villages, and they needed a staging area for their equipment and their supplies as they came in and out from the barges or whatnot and went to the bush. And that's what the purpose of that bill for that pad, original pad was. So I've got all this stuff. I didn't make copies of it, but I can make copies of it for you guys if you need it. Some of it's in the city file. Alvezi kept pretty extensive records, and he gave me his entire file when I bought that property. And nowhere there's notices from the city for assessments and for taxes, and even the latest one was 2017 or 2018 when Shane's property was being redeveloped for subdividing for the trooper housing or whatever, you know, how they public notice the neighbors and stuff. And I was told by the city clerk that sometime in 2018, notices went out to all the property owners that would have had grandfather rights or non-conforming rights, whichever you want to call it, that they had to apply for those non-conforming rights by some date in 2018, or their grandfather rights were extinguished. And I've spoken with numerous people here in town. I'm not going to call anybody's names, but they all have non-conforming stuff, and you guys pretty much know who most of them are. But I've also asked my neighbors in the immediate area, and nobody remembers getting any notice of any, you know, no certified mail about this non-conforming status. So consequently, it's my thought and my position that this pad and this property is grandfathered in for heavy equipment storage, contractor equipment storage, or whatever you want to call it. It was permitted to be a storage pad. It continues to be a storage pad. And that's one and the main thing. And the other thing was I got this notice sometime in February, in the middle of winter, that I had to remove these items within 10 days or start facing a $250 a day fine. If they weren't moved within 30 days, it would go to $500 a day. Now, I've been moving equipment onto that pad for almost 3 years. And there was quite a bit of stuff on the pad when I bought it that came with the pad when I bought it from Beasy. How I could be expected to mobilize in the dead of winter to even try and comply with that order is beyond me. It was physically impossible to do without a tremendous great expense. And I don't think you couldn't have done it in 10 days anyway. And as far as these overloads that Cliff alleged that I've been running in there, the gentleman from the state, the DOT, met me down there after being real disrespectful to the telephone because he was listening to what Cliff told him that I had been doing. And when he got there, I asked him to come meet me at the pad. When he got there, he said, he got out of his truck apologizing. He said, there's no overloads here. He said, there's one boat right there that may be over with a little bit, but everybody around here moves their boats when they can bring them in and out of the water. And he wasn't concerned with it. But he was really embarrassed because he had gotten pretty ignorant over the telephone because he'd gotten pumped up by Cliff over that. And I do move loads after hours. The reason I move loads after hours because there's no traffic. Yeah. And I'm loading during the day. 9 times out of 10, I'm loading by myself. It takes me all day long to get it loaded, get through the evening traffic rush, and then I move. And not because they're illegal loads. You know, it's just the time and the way it works out. And I did have one load that came in, I had hauled in by another trucking firm. They had mechanical problems, it got there late, and I did run the loader one time after 10 o'clock to get that load off the truck, because the truck had to go to another job the next day. Other than that, there haven't been any anything after 10 o'clock at night going on out there. But I go, that's a little bit off point here, but the fact of the matter is, this thing was permitted a long time ago. That gear that was sitting on there when I bought the lot, been on there for 19 years. And nobody said anything about any unauthorized use or anything up until sometime in the middle of winter, because somebody complained about it. And then when you look at the surrounding area, if you look at the back of Martinsonville subdivision, there's graders back there, there's loaders back there, there's vessels back there, there's containers back there, and all that stuff is non-conforming, and it's in a residential area. And then you've got two properties, again, across the street from me that have much more stuff than I have, and they're non-conforming. And apparently nobody's complained about them in the past, let alone all the other stuff all over town that's non-conforming. So I kind of think I'm being singled out here, and I don't really know why. But I believe I've got grandfather rights in there, and the timeline on these permits show that, and they're in the city records. And that's, I guess, basically the extent of my comments.
All
Anybody
right.
got any questions?
You understand though that the property is zoned commercial?
I'm sorry, sir?
You understand that it's zoned commercial?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, and that there's certain things that are and are not allowed in there?
I do believe that to a certain degree. There are certain things that are not allowed in there, but there's two things going on with that property. One, I'm acquiring inventory for resale. I have been. I've still got some other stuff that I'm buying to put out there. That property supports I've got an offshore mining lease, and I've got offshore mining permits issued by the state of Alaska, and that property supports the offshore work. I'm licensed by the state of Alaska in both instances to do that work. And then part of that stuff out there is for resale. I buy and sell all the time. It's what I do: land, airplanes, boats, whatever. I buy and sell. And I've also recently applied for a Nome state, and I was going to wait till I got the shop up to actually open the sale yard up. But being all this is going on, I went ahead and applied for a I think I'm trying to remember the category for the state, but it was equipment sale, wholesale equipment sales and leasing. And same thing with the city of Nome. The state permit I got, I'm waiting to hear back if the city of Nome is going to approve my sales permit for a business for the area. So
Got it. When I'm reading the sole issue before the commission tonight is decide whether the city erred in its interpretation of NCO 1862020T. So I understand there's a lot of secondary issues going on. The only thing before the commission tonight is whether you're violating the city code. And that's why I want to understand, you understand it's zone commercial and there's only so many things that can go on in there. So I get there's secondary issues here.
well, I mean, sales equipment can go on there, but also on the city code. And I'm not saying this is an excuse for me or my action or whatever I've done. However, the whole area over there is zoned commercial where I'm at, and that whole block on that side of the Nome Highway there, including the city strip. And according to the zoning codes, the storage of airplanes is not allowed in zoning code, in that commercial zoning code either. I mean, in my mind, they made an error when they zoned that thing originally. It should have been zoned industrial anyway. But you've got a whole plethora of airplanes stored out there, and some other junk that's stored up and down the runway. Some of it's mine, but That right there is not in compliance with the current zoning ordinance either.
Well, I don't know if
How do you pick and choose what you're going to enforce and what you're not going to enforce as far as zoning codes go?
I'd like to hear from the city attorney and from Aaron Reindeers, our planner.
He's listening, isn't he?
Oh, he's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to hear.
Hang on.
Is he done?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Are you done?
I guess so.
Or did he answer your question?
Yes.
Did you have
Yep.
any more questions?
No follow-up. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, Greg, go ahead.
Sure. Could you fill us
Yeah,
in?
this is Sam Severin. I'm largely going to defer to Ms. Reinders on she prepared the city's argument. If there's specific questions at this juncture, glad to answer them. One thing I would say on the enforcement, I mean, that is the decision to enforce against certain properties and not others. That's just a reality of how enforcement is done. There's limited bandwidth to do so, and it tends to be complaint driven. And that's just the nature of it. And most people who have a zoning enforcement action make that complaint, and they're not entirely wrong that they're being enforced against, but that's lawful. And I had a Supreme Court case in 2018 that was Corkery versus Municipality of Anchorage, and that was one of the various issues that came up. That's common. But with that, I think I'd like to have Ms. Reinders explain her memo, her position. Best to have the city's voice as much as possible instead of the attorney. So I'm glad to answer any questions after she gets done.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if you guys are good, I can kind of take it from here and then we can kind of open it up for questions that you all have of, Dan, Sam, or I. Does that sound good?
Yes, go ahead.
Perfect. Awesome. So I do, and I think you guys have already kind of named this. So we're really here tonight to consider Mr. Burnham's appeal of city staff's determination that outdoor storage is currently the primary use of his commercially zoned lot, and that use is not permitted in the commercial zoning district. So I just wanted to kind of quickly review the contents of your packet. So it's 3 primary documents. So one is that record of city action. So that includes the enforcement letter, the request for the appeal, as well as a little bit of email correspondence regarding the appeal. Some photos of the property, and then a couple of maps, kind of a vicinity map and location map, and then the planning, the zoning map. Also is the memo, where that really kind of serves as the response to the appeal and the defense really of city's decision. And the memo itself really summarizes the background and kind of the position of the city. It does kind of go through what guidance is provided by the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance, and then outlines some findings and possible paths forward. There's also the appeals section, straight from the zoning ordinance, that kind of talks about really what this appeal is and the process and the considerations that you all can take into consideration, I guess. Some points that you can take into consideration. So with all that in mind, I really just want to highlight a few points for you all. Again, the sole issue for the commission is to decide whether or not the city erred in its interpretation of code as it applies to Mr. Burnham's use of his lot. So specifically, we're talking about outdoor storage. And then secondly, to have a valid non-conforming use, we also use that term grandfathering in, that would require compliance with the whole section of code 18.130.040. Again, this is referenced in the memo, but there was no evidence that process was followed. So therefore, we're not considering this to be a non-conforming use.
Pardon me, Aaron?
Yes.
Yeah, several times you referred to a memo.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yes.
We're not seeing that.
Is that?
So there is a memo in your packet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. All right. thank you. Sorry.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it starts on page 19.
Yep. Okay.
So the appeal section of the code references the need to look at the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance for guidance on how, what to consider in the appeal. So both the comprehensive plan associates standalone outdoor storage with industrial districts and not commercial districts. And then also really specifically talks about support of abatement processes. The site itself is being used for outdoor storage and is zoned commercial. And then this is about kind of what the zoning does. So the outdoor storage is not currently an accessory use to any permitted or conditional use. And it's not related to any on-site wholesale or retail sale or with the home occupation. So if it fit any of those sorts of uses, then we would be having a different conversation. So specifically, this type of outdoor storage not associated with anything is not allowed by right or as a conditional use within the zoning district. So city staff is believing that the appeal should not be granted and the land use determination should be upheld. If the planning commission supports staff's actions, we would proceed with our efforts in really working with Mr. Burnham to reach a solution. Because really ultimately we want compliance. So we're happy to kind of continue working to reach a solution, maybe with a timeline of how that can be achieved. Or we can proceed with enforcement or abatement if absolutely necessary. So that's really kind of a brief overview. Again, all of the information is in your packet, but Dan and Sam and I are all here if you have questions for us.
Anyone have questions for Aaron?
So what I'm hearing is that we're considering only the current use of the property as non-compliant. There are other remedies that Mr. Burnham could explore, including some type of business that this is a permitted use for. And, am I correct in that statement?
Could you repeat that question about what the other options were?
So
Sorry,
Mr. Burnham
I-
might have some other options, such as a business that this is that is a permitted use for as an accessory use.
Right, if there were a business located on that property and this would be storage accessory to that permitted use, then that would be allowed. Another option would be to seek a building permit to construct a warehouse, because warehousing and the warehousing storage, those are permitted as well.
Okay, thank you.
Joe?
Yep.
Yeah, may I respond to that, I guess through the chair? I have applied for and I'm waiting on a response from the FAA regarding putting up a warehouse. I was gonna pull a permit last year to put the shop and offices up, but I was told by the gentleman with DOT that I had to apply through the FAA to get a determination to where I was far enough away from the approach for the city field, which I'm pretty sure I am because it's on a biased angle from where I'm sitting at, but I haven't gotten that back yet. Or had I had that back, or had I not needed last year, the warehouse and shop would have already been up. I'm doing this development in stages and possibly getting things out of order, but the ultimate goal is to operate a business there, and I fully intend to do so. Now, and also on Title 18 Commercial District, as I read it, retail and wholesale sales is legal, offices are legal, incidental under, that's A and B of those, Title 18, and then H is incidental small scale manufacturing and processing and storage of goods, wholesale or retail. on premises. I would be residential use of an upper floor. T would be outdoor storage, including junk. L would be on-site dwelling for owner caretaker. K would be private storage, including junk or small warehouse associated with residential use for home occupation. I think there's quite a few criteria under that commercial zoning that I would meet and have the intention of meeting, at least on the sales aspect of it, and also have an on-site office and living quarters. They're not there yet, but they are in the works once I get permitted for them.
So currently, just a question there, the current business structure and use is not complying. There's been no steps to take action in that direction by Mr. Joe Burnham to get a correct business or stuff in there. And he's kind of evaded anything that the building inspector has tried to help with and not been always cooperative. I just want that to be clear if that is true or not. But I believe it to be true.
Well, I have applied for the permit for the FAA to give me clearance whether I can build a warehouse or can't build a warehouse on kind of the height restriction for the city field. There's a zone, I don't know how far it goes out. I didn't think it went out very far on these small strips, but anyway, I gotta get that I gotta get that before I can take it to Cliff to apply for building permit, because Cliff told me as much. And I'm waiting on that to get back for getting the building up. I mean, I got my building materials on site. A lot of those building materials that are there for the building I was gonna build there, or most of them are.
So if I could, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Darren.
So I think what we're starting to talk about are factors that would go into a compliance agreement if the planning commission were to deny the appeal, and we would move forward with enforcing as the determination has already been made that it's outdoor storage, and then we would work with Mr. Burnham to ideally develop this compliance agreement with solid kind of progressive dates that would have to be met to ensure compliance moving forward. So I guess I'm saying we don't need to get into all of the detail. I mean, I think this is a very meaningful and important conversation, but again, like the details of that would go into the compliance agreement once the appeal was dealt with.
Thank you. I'm glad you illuminated the process perfectly, because that's where I was pushing it.
Perfect.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how you try and put a timeline when you're waiting for other external agencies to function.
You're at their mercy.
Yeah, he's kind of at their mercy. And if you're going to try and okay.
Okay.
That would
Yeah,
strikes me as being a bit of a challenge. All right. Does the council have any further questions for Mr. Burnham or staff at this point?
Thanks.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make some comments on the particular application?
Well, I asked Calvin Schaefer to be here tonight. He's the gentleman Joe's referring to at the DOT.
Okay, let the record reflect it's Cliff McHenry speaking.
Oh, Cliff McHenry speaking.
Sorry.
But I had requested Calvin Schaefer to be here, and as I recall, he didn't paint such a rosy picture of those vehicles that only one needed a permit, and people do it all the
You
time.
weren't there when Calvin came the first
Well,
time.
I was there,
Mr. Chairman,
Okay,
Point
so
of
point of order, you
Sorry.
guys. All right.
I was with him a couple times, and he was upset with that, and he wanted to get the troopers to give you a citation. So we couldn't get them to do
Cliff,
it because. they didn't
please,
mention
Cliff.
that.
Address the.
Please address the council.
Okay, well,
Good.
all right. Yeah, so anyhow, I was out there more than once with Calvin Schaefer, and he had some issues with that equipment. And again, at the time, I didn't have the ability to issue citations, and now with my health, I can't, because I just had triple bypass.
Yep, thank you.
So the city needs to have some kind of enforcement, because things like this can just kind of snowball.
I agree with you. We need a code enforcement officer with their
Thank you.
own vehicle. I hope the record reflects that statement.
Thomas Simonson, resident of Nome. I have followed this case since the beginning here, and of course, I've had front row seeing how this thing has just grown and grown and grown. And I've heard that Mr. Burnham has 40 years of experience doing business in Alaska. And so I would think that there would be an awareness of proper procedure, putting the horse before the cart was the saying. You don't put the cart before the horse, right? And that seems to be the case here. And overall in Nome, I would say, but in this case, the cart has been put in front of the horse. And the question is, how does this committee deal with that in this individual case? Is that an excuse to wait for outside entities like FAA to make their determination, or assumptions that certain things will happen, so therefore there will be no or little action? I think one should pull it back and say, hey, well, this is how we do business here, and you should put the horse first. So, thank you.
Are there any other public comments?
Good evening, Ryan Martinson, Nome resident. I remember a long time ago when I was a kid when all that was just tundra out there. And my dad, my grandpa Elmer, my grandpa Dale bought some property out there, and they turned it into whatever kind of business they could manage to survive through Nome in those years. We all know Nome is a long winter. We all know that if you don't have a full-time job somewhere and you have a type of job that is seasonal, that the season is short, the days are long, and we have a very short time to make enough money to last through the winter. In saying that, over time, that grew to be a construction lot full of belly dumps, cranes, connexes. A lot of people went to work there. A lot of people learned trades there. Over time, it eventually became a subdivision. Its official name is Willow Ridge. It's endearingly named Martinsonville. We still own a sizable part of what is the subdivision. We have a shop, we have a hotel, we have some rental units, and we also have some storage. Storage is used for commercial purposes. As I think in the case of Joe Burnham, his storage, if you want to call it storage, is used for commercial purposes. I've known Joe for 10 years. He's exactly what he says he is. He buys, he sells, he trades, he works, and he's involved all around the state doing all kinds of different projects, such as the one he's taken on here to apply for the permitting process through the state, APMA, and bought a lease, and he's doing his best to try and be an ocean gold miner, which, take it from me, is not easy. And it requires lots of time, lots of financing, and in some cases, getting the cart long before the horse. A case in point to that would be just the barging season. You come up with all these ideas of things you want to do all winter, you make all these plans, you still have to wait for the barge to show up to get your horse. But what if you were able to find in your quote unquote junk pile enough stuff to recycle and repurpose and build that. Our family built the first ever Coast Guard certified ship, if you want to call it, in Nome, made of steel ever. It was largely built out of repurposed materials that were located in various junkyards, if you want to call them. I don't call them junkyards because I believe in recycling, and I think they're just recycle yards. But in saying that, I want to show my support for Joe and anybody else who wants to take on a project in our community that will, in the end, benefit our community. I brought up the point of that being an equipment yard long ago. None of us are going to be around forever, and someday, after Joe's ambitions are gone, somebody else is going to pick up that property, and they may have other plans for it. But the property will be largely developed. There'll be a gravel pad. It'll have been permitted. It'll have been operated as a commercial business, and perhaps someday it becomes somebody else's vision of where their commercial property should be. So who are we to tell a property owner, a taxpayer, what they can and can't do on their property in these very fine guidelines of what is commercial, what is storage, what isn't. There's storage yards all over town, and not just on the commercial or business level. Most citizens of Nome, whether they own property or not, are storing something somewhere. It might be an eyesore to the neighbor, it might not, but it's their property, it's their stuff, and they have an entitlement to be able to store it. And with that, I'd like to end my comments, and I hope that the Planning Commission will see through the smoke, and that, I remember when there wasn't even zoning here. Zoning didn't come around until like the late 90s or something, and quite frankly, I don't know that it's ever done any good. Has it ever brought an extra dollar to town saying you can build this here and you can't build that there? To me, all that does is slow things down, and we get bogged down in the permitting process. And in Joe's case, he has to get permission from the FAA to build next to a airstrip that shouldn't even be an airstrip, and before he can apply for the building permit from the city to build his building, and round and round we go. 5 months. That's how long we have here in this town to get anything done in the summer. And then it's winter lockdown, and you better have your stuff together by the time the 5 months is up, or get on board next year. So good night, and thank you for all your time, and we'll see ya.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Good evening, Rexodus Tomranke, one of the people and resident of Nome. And I would also just like to speak in favor of Mr. Burnham's appeal. I would like to remind the council that I know personally several local men who have built multi-million-dollar businesses off of what some may call junk. And those businesses bring in quite a bit of tax revenue into the community. And I would just like to say, when driving past Mr. Burnham's property 3 to 5 times a day, I don't see junk at all. I'm window shopping. So, good evening.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? All right, no one's calling in or anything? Okay, I guess we'll close public comments and begin with discussion.
When do we get to make a motion? What do we?
We have to come out of public hearing now, correct?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, so we'll make a note that we're out of public hearing at 8:03 PM.
So what's the next step in the process?
If we make a motion, we have something to discuss.
I'd make the motion to uphold the land use determination of the city administration that Casanock LLC is in violation of the code. Ordinances and no.
Yeah,
Typically, although I think it's great that you're making a motion in the affirmation of the positive.
I read that book.
I would believe that the correct motion would be to grant the appeal of the appellant, which is why we're here.
Got it.
right, okay. And
Well,
then,
let's do that if that gets the ball rolling.
okay,
So I'd make the motion to approve the appeal
okay,
of Casanock LLC.
I second it.
okay. Motion by Commissioner Lust, seconded by Commissioner Smith to grant the appeal of the appellant, Joe Burnham. Is there any discussion?
Anything we need to hear from the attorney or anybody? Or are we good?
Excuse me, the only couple of quick suggestions, not argument about the case, but just suggestions is one, it's definitely helpful if you, as you're deliberating, do have a discussion and state your reasons for why you're making a finding. That's necessary if there's an appeal to court or that kind of thing. It doesn't have to be particularly long, but as long as you make some kind of record, that's very helpful. The other thing is that I was just going to mention that written findings are required with this kind of thing. So you can vote tonight, state those reasons, and then my suggestion would be to keep the hearing open just for further deliberation. Direct the city to prepare written findings based on what you decide, and bring them back at future meeting. We can discuss that, but just know that written findings will ultimately be a necessary outcome.
Thank you.
All right. So let's take up some of the issues that have come before us.
So
Let's start off with non-conforming uses and their registration. The ordinance that asked everyone with a non-conforming use in the zone to register it with the city.
before 2018, October something 2018, but how long has he owned that property? And was it?
Well, that would have been
Well,
the previous owner's responsibility to disclose or to have done it.
Right. So regardless, the first question I have is, how many properties in town have registered their non-conforming use?
0. So I checked that out before coming to the meeting.
So we have an ordinance that has never been
Complied with.
by anybody as the basis for denying this party the use of his lot as he sees, as it had been used prior to the zoning code even coming into being. Okay. Until we can get past this point, there's no point in discussing the rest of it. Because if the zoning code doesn't apply because the use is going to be considered a non-conforming grandfathered use, because nobody has complied with it ever, one might ask, what exactly was the publication of this ordinance? How was the notification handled? Generally speaking, on something that would be citywide, you would anticipate that it wouldn't be individual letters going out, but instead it would be public notices and publications of record posted at the post office or whatnot. I could see this being done in the middle of winter just because that's when a lot of meetings happen and a lot of folks with non-conforming uses are out of town and might never see it.
I don't know that I necessarily agree with that assessment. I think the only thing before us tonight, again, not to go right back to the agenda, is he in violation of the ordinance?
Okay, so
But the fact that nobody followed, I mean, I'm assuming the council passed this, there was posting for that.
It was
You can't rule on, excuse me, but you can't rule on an assumption. Y'all gotta prove that they passed that. There's gotta be a record of it.
Point of order, he's not in this conversation.
Excuse me for interjecting.
Well, right, okay, just, we know that.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So enforcement is selective by nature. It is driven by complaint in general. However, an official can make a selection and to enforce without a complaint if they'd like. So therefore, all the other ones that didn't comply, didn't get a complaint, so they're not in front of us. So therefore, that doesn't apply. Your argument is null and void.
I just think we're better served by sticking just to the issue that's spelled out in the agenda that's before us. The real issue that I have with many things, I'm making my determinations, and I'm reading the agenda, I'm reading the planning memo, and everything is clicking and making sense to me, the logical flow of it. I get that there's a lot of just barely things that are just almost in the works, almost going to be there, but they're not today, and that's what's before us today.
Which the good news on that, if I may, is that he can put that in a compliance plan in a way to get into compliance with the city. That's not our purview. That's between them and them. Our sole decision is he's not in compliance. He cannot approve.
Right.
Yes.
And enforcement is selective. Sorry. He was an unfortunate recipient of a selection process.
Grandfather right to fly, I mean.
We don't have any the word grandfather is not in our code anywhere.
Sorry,
Yes,
same
the,
problem I'm having.
Non-compliant. I mean,
Point of order.
Yes, sorry.
Mr. Burnham, it is not your time to speak. You had your time.
I apologize.
Thank you.
Non-conforming uses.
Right.
There's no
word grandfather anywhere in the code.
No.
Doesn't exist.
So what exactly does it say regarding non-conforming uses?
If you put it on the books as of October, whatever, 2018, it was a legitimate non-conforming use. If you didn't, then it never existed. That's really it.
And the city planner actually has a section in there where they address the non-conforming use status, where they talk about it. And the final part is an application must have been submitted by October 2018, and there is no evidence that this occurred.
Oh, that was going to be my question. There is none.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I'm
Go ahead.
hoping not to overcomplicate this, but I think this might be helpful.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I did just want to point out that, I mean, I'm standing firm with the fact that there's nothing that we have that documents that anything has been submitted to address the non-conforming use issue, but the Planning Commission might want to consider the fact that although Mr. Burnham has, kind of described a kind of the history of the property, there are some nuances when it comes to the storage. And in your packet, you have a few different types of storage that are allowed on the property. And I think the key, there's that component of if the property is being used for a business, then sometimes the storage is allowed. And so like what is happening, at least I think what the city has determined is happening right now is it is solely storage, not associated with any active business occurring on the property.
Correct.
And that's not really what I was hearing Mr. Burnham describe the property being used previously. So I just kind of wanted to point that little bit of nuance out.
Thank you.
Okay, and in that regards, in paragraph 1, second to last of the letter that he received on February 26, 2025.
What page are you on?
I'm not sure where it's at in the packet. This is what we got handed out the night before. At the last meeting.
Page 6 or 7, are you talking about the city's letter that they sent to him?
Mhm.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, okay.
The statement, you do not have a city business license. Okay. I have a real problem with. To my knowledge, the city doesn't license businesses. That's generally a business license is the rule of the state. Now, for some businesses that do retail sales, there's a city sales tax license that authorizes the collection and remittance of sales tax. But that's not a business license. Now, whether or not there's a business there, if you go to look at search the business licenses, perhaps you'll find the Canosac LLC, but he says he's using it for mining. Well, guess what? The state doesn't have business licenses for mining or for commercial fishing. They have a slightly different process. They issue mining licenses separate by the Department of Revenue. It's not handled in the same way as the other business licenses. So were you to look up for business licenses, you wouldn't find any. You might find some mining companies that did file a business license, but lack of finding one there would not mean that the gentleman isn't actively engaged in a business in either commercial fishing or mining. So he's already stated that he does mining, and that's a business, plus he's indicated his plans. So there's some commercial activity in the commercial zone. I would be real confused if I got this letter.
If I may, when you're done.
Go ahead, Greg.
Usually when a business is in town, the city gets a copy of the business license they have on file. So that's probably what they're referring to. Not that they issued one. And then the second thing.
No, it says you do not have a city business license. Pretty clear.
It's kind of a bad thing, but I don't see the point of it. There's no mining going on of it. The use of the lot is in mining. The use of the lot is storage that's not associated with a licensed business that is under the code. So I think we should stick to the topic.
A licensed business. Okay.
That is correct. That's the code.
Boy. Do you have a state mining license?
Sir?
Do you have a state mining license?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But that's not.
I've had for several years.
Okay. Now that doesn't show up as a quote business license, but it is a license to do business.
You took I took an oath to uphold the ordinance. I hope you did too.
In addition, I pay somewhere around 20,000.
Okay. I just needed the quick answer. Right. All right.
Did
Thank you.
You took an oath to uphold the ordinances, right?
That's right.
Okay. Just want that to be clear.
A city sales tax license is a business license. It's a type of business license.
Yes.
Okay. But in the general
That's
parlance,
used synonymously.
in the general parlance of business. Okay. That's kind of like the same problem I had when you said the permit from the state. And then no, it's not from the state of Alaska. But overall, from the general state of government, okay, I might have jumped a little prematurely on that. I apologize. Anyway, I just wanted to make clear that there is a business associated with the rock that is ongoing. And from what Aaron said, that would allow this to be permitted, which would mean that the city might have overstepped their bounds a little bit here.
If I could, I think the question then becomes, is that outdoor storage associated with an accessory, is that an accessory use to a permitted or conditional use on the property? So then the discussion would become, is that business that you're describing permitted on that property? Is that a permitted use?
If you're gonna call,
The mining business isn't a permitted use on a commercial property.
okay, so there are many different types of activity that are entailed in the mining business.
We need a licensed one that conforms with the code. He has remedies, he can get that licensed one after we vote it no to approve. As long as he enters into agreement with the city. So stop wasting our time, please.
Okay? Does anyone have any further to say?
I would just say that I think we may be getting into the weeds a little bit in that I'm going to make my determination based off of information that I'm reading from the city that I'm taking as fact tonight. We've talked about a lot of details, a lot of things that none of us have confirmed independently that we're all just taking as, oh, well, he has this, we have that, could have this, a step away from having that. I'm making my determination tonight based on my understanding of how it is based on what the city's saying, because I read it and it sounds factual and credible to me. So that's kind of where I'm at.
And so therefore you're in favor of granting the appeal?
I'm in favor of.
Should be a motion made,
Yes.
roll call.
Curious.
Yeah.
We're already discussing a motion. We're discussing the motion to grant the appeal.
I don't think it's fair to ask him to give his opinion. before
Okay,
That's
it was
inappropriate.
difficult to
Sorry.
understand whether he was for
I'm
or
against
against. That's it.
granting the appeal. I think
Yes.
the city's determination that he's in violation of the land use determination is correct and accurate as of the information I have,
Right here.
which is the information that's in the packet. I have his communications that I've read. In fact, I've read this entire packet every day for the last, since I got it on Thursday or Friday afternoon, trying to make heads or tails out of it. And that's where I'm at, is I think he's in violation of the land use for something that's zoned commercial, because it's connected to one LLC. He's got this LLC. He may have a business license here. He's got this. The city's open for business. They're eager to have business in Nome. And if somebody was working with the city, this all would have been hashed out administrative. It got to me, to us. But
Improperly licensed business activity can't get insurance, and it's a public risk and a public safety hazard. This is why we have these zoning laws.
no, that's all I got. That's all I got.
Okay, final comments, Carol?
I read exactly what you said, and had to read it over several times to figure out what was the issue here. And I really think that the city we have the zoning laws, and we have what's required and what should be done prior to going through your processes of setting up your, whatever it is you're doing, that you do that in a timely manner. And yes, there are some issues that can get in the way of that, but still, we can't change the ordinances and the policies to say, except for your condition, or except for these issues. It doesn't say that in there. So I really believe that, but the cities, our zoning laws and what I've read it over and over again to try to figure it out, that, I don't agree that we should grant this appeal either. Just because it should have been done, it could have been done, but there's time to make those, as the city's willing to work with him to go ahead and start the process or complete the process for what he needs to get done.
Any
It was
final
not an
comments?
easy decision. I mean, it was not, because there were so many things going back and forth, and it took me a little while to come to a conclusion and decide that I agree that we have them down for a reason. We have our zoning issues for a reason. And we have the other issue of not enforcing, then that's something else that somebody should address, not at this time, at this meeting tonight.
Okay, is that all?
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Kurt?
I'm really in support of all the business activity and all the stuff to make Nome zoom and go and taking piles of junk. I've taken my piles of junk and turned them into fortunes. I'm in that category too. However, I got the proper permits and the proper business licenses and insurances to protect the public in that process and complied with all zoning and codes. It's not hard to do it right. It just takes the right attitude. And I would like to see more of that. I appreciate this meeting, and we have to uphold the ordinances of the city of Nome. And I'm glad there's remedies in those ordinances for people who are aggrieved. And I really support following that path for the appellant. Thank you.
So my final comments would be that there's a lot of imperfectness in the situation. But the bottom line for me is the best way to bring the two parties together strikes me as being to deny the appeal and have the city and Mr. Burnham work out a compliance agreement that's doable.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think that in the long run that will meet everyone's needs, both private and public parties. And so with that, you may call the roll on the motion to grant the appeal. A vote of yes will grant the appeal to Mr. Burnham. A grant of no will deny it. Go ahead and call the roll.
Roll call. Commissioner Smith,
No.
Commissioner Lust,
No.
Commissioner Piscoyo,
No.
Commissioner Hughes.
No. The motion fails. The appeal is denied. I believe that you may also appeal this decision to the city council. I believe you may appeal this decision to the city council should you wish.
Okay.
But our ruling is to deny the
I
appeal.
understand.
Okay.
I don't understand, and it's just a comment, but I have a hard time understanding how y'all can rule on non-conforming rights when you can't even prove that anything was done in 2018. Any notice that went out, there's been no proof put here to any property owner in Nome regarding any non-conforming rights. It's just something that somebody said on staff, just like staff has told me they're not going to approve me for a variance. They're not going to approve me for a business license, which I've already applied for. There's some monkey motions going on here that y'all ain't getting all the information of, but that's neither here nor there. But I'll try and work with the community council, and if not, then we'll go to court. I mean, that's my only option. I'm not trying to do anything underhanded here. I've met the criteria, I've explained my rationale. If y'all want to change y'all's bill permit status, that's what y'all need to do, because it clearly states.
The issue was not the fill permit.
Well, that's what he's bringing up, shooting across
okay,
at
but
me,
that
making me look bad.
That was not what was in the letter.
Stick to the letter.
The only thing.
Only issues you gotta address is in the letter, sorry, Kenny.
No, I understand that, but Cliff's coming here and making me look bad that I'm a wildcat this and wildcat that and running these loads and running that,
All right,
which forms y'all's opinion of me. And that's six one half dozen the other, but anyway, we'll
We're not-
address it going down the road, I guess.
I'm glad we're not privy to that information. We don't get to know about the stuff between Cliff and.
all right, point of order. We're done with this topic.
Thank you very much. Y'all have a good
Miss-
afternoon.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
There was a recommendation about preparing written comments and keeping, is that just administratively gonna
Yes.
happen, or do we need to do anything to have that?
I believe,
I can address that briefly. If you just direct the city to prepare some findings, the city, I can help, or Aaron can, we'll bring that back probably at the next meeting. The only really technical piece is to just note for the record that the deliberations will remain open, so that you still have a means to consider those findings and just say whether they accurately reflect the decision, and that'll just be an agenda item probably at the next meeting.
okay, thank you.
Thank you for y'all's time and attention, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
So do we need sorry, do we
I
need
need to,
do we need a motion to do that, or is that just,
No.
is that just gonna happen?
That's just gonna happen.
Okay, perfect, I just
Yeah.
trying to,
Okay,
sorry.
so,
I think that's good enough. If that's what you, it would be a motion to direct the city to prepare findings and to leave the deliberative portion of the hearing open to entertain those findings. But if that's the direction, I don't think we formally need a motion, if that's everybody's understanding.
That's everybody's understanding.
That's our
everybody's
understanding.
Yep,
thank you.
okay, sorry, thank you for entertaining that.
That was all item A. That was it.
That was it.
And what's next?
Unfinished.
Staff reports. Cliff has a report in that front page of what he handed out. Thank you, Cliff. No other staff reports. All right, commissioners' comments? Good call. Usually you get to call the roll.
Like,
In some kind of order, just make sure you put me last.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, roll call.
Sure.
Commissioner West.
Oh, all right, comments. I don't have a whole lot on my mind tonight after that, so I don't have any comments tonight.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
Well, I think it was a nice process here. I hope nobody stepped on anybody's toe, none of that. I think the city staff did an amazing job, especially with changes of city managers, city clerks, and trying to really did amazing in keeping us straight and on the narrow and on track. It really brings to light an enforcement issue that comes back to us over and over and over again. What do we need to do to make people listen? That we need a code enforcement officer with their own vehicle that has a ticket book that can issue tickets. It's long overdue. And going forward with everything coming into town now, they're going to walk right over us, steamroll right over us. We need something. We need some tools in the toolbox, is what we have ain't working. Thanks.
Bravo.
All right. right, Commissioner Piscoyo.
I think that this was a very interesting process that I learned a lot from, but I also know that we can't change the rules if we make the rules. And we, the zoning ordinances and the codes, they're there for a reason. And we need to make sure that people stick to those and follow the process. It's not a difficult process. It's not timely. I mean, you have plenty of time to follow the process and the codes for what you're wanting to do within the city. And I support a lot of all these businesses and that we need to have Nome be ready for the additional businesses that are probably going to happen here. But we have ordinances and we have codes and we have zoning, and if we don't have those, then what do we have? What are we here doing? What are we doing here? So we need to make sure that, and I like your comment about having somebody to do enforcing, and that's a real issue I think we need to bring up at one of our meetings to support propose to the city that we do need somebody in this position. We should create that position and bring it up to the city for them to deal with. So, thank you, Mike. There was, I mean, we have ordinances for a reason, and we need to follow those.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I realize I passed on mine. I had something from the very beginning of the meeting. Is there a possibility of
Sure, go
redo, or is
ahead.
it too late? I'm
No.
sorry. I just
Round
wanted to comment that at the very beginning of the meeting, we had a member of the public speak about a proposed development at Ruby Place. I'm hoping that individual gets in touch with the city. It sounds like there might be some streamlining of that process. I know some things are laid out in statute that require things. But I think the city of Nome is open for business. We need more development. And I know that I, as a commissioner, am ready and eager to do what I can do to help move those along. But I know we had him come and hopefully he reaches out to the city or the city reaches out. And if there's things to be done, they can happen because housing is important.
Excellent point.
Thank you.
Forgot
Sorry.
about that one.
Yep, forgot about
I
that.
forgot about that one.
Me too.
Well, he said he'd get back to the city right away. So,
Okay, my comments would be that similar to my comments at the last meeting regarding activity in industrial zones. So I've been approached by mining companies that have permits in the works for mining on their property that's in an industrial zone, which according to code, we need to be granting a conditional use permit in order to allow that. And their bewilderment at how things got that way and why, without them seemingly being contacted, although that may have been done by a shotgun through public media, which they might not necessarily see. And how does the city zoning how does the city zoning that prohibits development of their property in a manner that's going to cost them the opportunity to extract a resource that they've had the rights to for a lot of years since Salmon consolidated? What are we expecting from them exactly? A conditional use permit to allow mining in an industrial area?
Yeah.
Why would we not approve it? You look at the industrial areas, most of the industrial areas are areas that got water, sewer, and infrastructure available for large scale development. A lot of our industrial zoned property is not really suitable for industrial uses. And I'm not sure that we have a great process for going through the activities of through time as land goes from natural resource extraction to where those resources are extracted, and then the land is converted to other uses. Not sure that process is, I think it's a barrier to additional development. I think Melissa Ford's comments about conditional uses should all go away is something truly to consider. I could see that it strikes me that for our large property owners within the city, that it's kind of almost, what's the point of the code? We're just going to go ahead and approve what they're going to do kind of anyways. And if we're going to grant a conditional use for mining, then why should it be a conditional use? Why not just have it be a permitted use in the industrial sector? Anyway, so I could see that we could reflect on some of the zoning and perhaps make it more clear to potential developers about what is and what is not allowed without the conditions that may ebb and flow with the makeup of the planning commission at the time. So, but I guess that's work for the future. I'd like to thank you all for your opinions and your time tonight. I know it was a situation that we haven't seen before. This is the first time I've seen quite this. And so thank you for your time and consideration. I did purposely play the other side as hard as possible to bring out the best arguments from y'all to refute the contentions. So thank you for your patience and your consideration. That's all I have for tonight. Schedule of next meeting?
July 1st, first Tuesday of July.
I think I'm on a plane.
I think I am too, but I don't know if I'll even be here.
I'm usually in Maui for 4th of July.
Third, second week? I don't know.
Eighth?
I'm not opposed to that.
I'm available whenever. I have no travel plans.
Yeah, my travel plans are very limited. Eighth working, sounding better for you too?
Yeah, that working for me.
Joe?
Yeah,
That's
it works
good.
for me.
Okay.
Actually, my ticket, I get back on the 8th at 7:33.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
That
So
definitely.
that's,
And you're leaving on the
I'm leaving on like the 1st.
Okay, the eighth, well, you can hurry over.
Yeah, I'll have to hurry over.
Oh, yeah, right.
33?
That's at 5:30.
Yeah, 5:30, I should be able to
Yeah.
get right
Oh.
off the plane.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We'll send the car down. We'll
5:33.
send the car down for you.
Sounds good. Send it the city vehicle limousine.
We'll move it right up.
The city limo.
Oh, you can park your truck at the airport.
Come on, don't ruin it. Nothing ruins a good story like the truth.
Okay, sounds like the eighth. Next item?
not part of the meeting, but I wanted to ask you about, our abatements issues. Not part of the meeting, but on another note. How are we doing on
Hey,
those?
Cliff, abatement, we didn't hear anything about abatement, anything going on there?
Yeah.
With all the other stuff going on, I know I might have lost, but
Well,
Well, you know, there were some
we
really
lost,
critical ones that we were wanting. to get done.
when Glenn left and he was kind of wearing two hats and the abatement just kind of ground to a halt. So we never moved forward on it.
Okay.
And,
We need to get back
I'd like
on
to
it.
see something done with it because I got a whole list of that.
I know you're working hard.
We need
Yeah. It's kind of frustrating
I'll
to
put that on an agenda.
kind of lose your mojo, so to speak.
Yeah, let's get your mojo back. Bring that abatement list when you,
Abatement list?
On the agenda,
Okay, well, I throw that by.
next to- because we need to get back on that. There's just too many things that we need to move forward.
Plus we
Motion to
lost,
adjourn.
There's
Brian
been,
Hammond also.
been a motion to
Right.
adjourn. Is there a second?
Second, first,
Ooh,
second,
they-
third.
right
All
in.
those- motion by Commissioner Ross, seconded by Commissioner Castelia to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Selectmen.
thanks for